Will you pray with me? Gracious and loving God, as we come before you yet again, having sung your praises and having read from your word, be with us as we seek to interpret your word. Guide and direct our hearts and minds, that the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts together might be acceptable in your sight. For you are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. When did we see you hungry, thirsty, without clothing, lonely? We all know this parable, and that's an important concept in itself. Remember, Jesus is giving a series of teachings, right? We've been through this for the last several weeks. A series of teachings on the nature of the kingdom of heaven. These are not necessarily allegories, these are not promises, but somehow we read this one differently than all those previous ones. I think part of it is the human tendency to fall toward what the theologians like to refer to as works righteousness. We know what that is, yes? Oh, I saw a head shake. No, I get to tell you. So, I didn't really. But I'm going to tell you anyway, just in case someone was not as sure as they should have been. Works righteousness is the idea that if I'm good enough, I will make my way into heaven. And this story is really appealing to people who fall in that category of works righteousness, isn't it? Because Jesus says, I'm going to separate the people, and the people that did good things, I'm letting in. And if we had kept reading, which I chose to leave it out when you read the text this morning, it would have said those that didn't do that are out. But I figured you all knew that. There was no reason to spend those extra 6 verses. You know, we've got time. We've got things we've got to do. And telling the good side of it is enough to make the point. Because the point I want you to spend some time thinking about today is the idea that, first of all, a reminder, you can't earn your way to heaven. Right? Up and down for yes. Side to side for no. Give a big snort if you're already asleep. Good, I didn't hear any snorts. That's a plus. You can't earn your way. So what Jesus is talking about is really the motivation that comes from a response to being Christian. What we talked about in the children's moment, the idea that we want to keep Christ in Christians. Because we all know that as the season moves on, we're going to see some not always Christ-like behaviors out of those that are trying to defend Christ. I found myself reflecting this week on holiday greetings and how uptight some Christians will get about store clerks not saying Merry Christmas. Now, Sammy's face says it all, and I know you can't all see her right now, but she had this, I've got so many better things to worry about, look on her face. And I agree 100%. But more so, especially in this part of the country where we are a very diverse body. I found myself thinking, if I were a store manager or owner, I would want my clerks to engage their customers. Oh, is this a holiday gift? So that you would have the opportunity to say, yeah, it's for Hanukkah. And then I would know. I'd be able, if I was paying attention, if I was a good employee, I could say, Happy Hanukkah to you. Because I do wish for you a Happy Hanukkah, if that's your faith belief. If you were doing something for Kwanzaa or something, whatever it was, I could give the appropriate greeting. But of course, no one has time for that. No one would train or trust their employees for that, because then you get into a whole mess again. And thus came the term Happy Holidays. Secondary. The problem with this story, this parable, about when did I see you hungry or thirsty, naked or in prison, is we tend to get too literal. I got to confess now. I have only been to a jail visit once in my, I should have done the math, however many, 25, 27 years, I don't even know, of ministry. Once. I just haven't had the opportunities in terms of the people I've been called to care for. Doesn't mean there aren't people there. And if I wanted to, I could spend a lot of time obsessing about the ones that I didn't know at all, that I didn't visit, right? Because it's right there, in red, in the Bible. I'm supposed to visit people in prison. Betting I'm not alone on this one. I won't ask you to raise your hands. When, Jesus, did I see you imprisoned by the sexual harassment and harm that we became aware of in the Me Too's? When, Jesus, did I see you naked or without clothing because someone had stripped away another's dignity? When, Jesus, did I see you thirsting for the opportunity to learn and grow, to be rejected because of race or gender or identity? When, Jesus, did I see you lonely and rejected because of the makeup of your body? Oh, preacher, you just went from a nice little parable to stepping on my toes, and I'm not sure I like you much right now. And my response is great. I'm glad if I've done that. Because I'm guilty too. And it's time as a society to start seeing the person thirsting for the opportunity to just feel at one with the world, being bullied in the schoolyard or at the McDonald's or at the Burger King experiment or whatever, and start to raise a voice. It's time to see those who have been abused because of their gender and to see the abusers and say, no more. That's not acceptable. It's time to have the courage to stand up against every ism you can think of. And because I'm in church and we worry too much about it, ageism's coming, folks. It's time to say, my Lord and Savior called me out in the midst of explaining the kingdom of heaven to raise a voice for those who have no voice. In this season, on this Christ the King Sunday, it is easy for us to feel righteous enough. Our works are pretty good. Hey, Alan alone's covering for most of us with the amount of time he spends at Fish feeding the hungry, right?
Amen.
Thanks, by the way. There are people in your life. You may not know them by name, but you've seen the events that are hungry for someone to represent or represent Christ in a way that they can meet, in a way that says, I stand with you. I stand for you. Because when I look around this room, especially today, I see a whole lot of people with a lot of societal power. Sometimes we don't feel very powerful. But I've never been pulled over for a not broken taillight. I have never worried about being bullied in a restaurant because of the privilege that's afforded to me by my race and gender. And I'm not worried enough about caring for the other that I see it happen to. Oh, I shake my head and cluck my tongue and think that's a shame. And I have no doubt in what I have been convicted by in this week, that Jesus did the exact same thing watching me do it. That's a shame. You had such an opportunity. An opportunity to present me, to represent me, to represent me in a way that you may not get again. I've been guilty more than once of telling my sons as they walk out the door, remember who you are and who you represent in the world. When you said yes to Jesus Christ, you said yes to the role of being a Christian. So when you go out in the world, remember who you are. Remember who you represent. And stand up for right. It's what Christ has called us to do. Amen.